You know that little sloped ramp on the corner of a sidewalk? Ever really truly thought about it? It's such a simple design choice, but it has this surprisingly big story behind it. Today, we're going to dive into that story and see how it connects to, well, everything, from the house you live in to the future of technology. This is all about universal design, this powerful idea of building a more inclusive world, one smart design choice at a time.
So let's just start with this question. What on earth connects a simple sidewalk ramp to a mind-reading headset? I know, it sounds like a weird riddle, but the answer kind of maps out the entire journey we're on today. It's the path from solving these really basic physical barriers to pioneering futuristic tech that we can control with our very own thoughts.
And that whole journey really kicks off with this brilliant concept called the curb cut effect. Seriously, it's one of the most elegant examples of universal design in action. It shows how one small change, made for just a few people, can have this massive and often totally unintended positive ripple effect for everyone.
So, what are we really talking about when we say universal design? Well, at its core, it's about designing everything, buildings, products, software, you name it, so that the widest possible range of people can use it without needing some kind of special fix or adaptation. It's not about designing for a niche group, it's about designing for all of us. Simple, right? But the impact is absolutely profound. And this is the curb cut effect right here. Those ramps, they were originally required for wheelchair users. But just think about who uses them now. Parents with strollers, delivery workers with hand trucks, travelers dragging their luggage, kids on bikes and skateboards. A specific solution for one group made navigating the city easier for literally everybody. That's the magic of it. And the need for this kind of thinking is growing on a scale that's kind of hard to wrap your head around. By 2030, projections show that over 2 billion people worldwide will need at least one assistive technology product. That is a massive slice of the global population, and it shows us this isn't just a challenge, it's a huge opportunity to design things better.
This growing need brings us to something really fundamental, something we all want, a place to call home. Because for millions of people, the search for housing isn't just hard, it's a constant, frustrating barrier that keeps them from living a full life.
Just look at the scale of the problem here. A survey in Australia found that a whopping 68% of people had trouble finding livable housing for themselves or a family member. Can you imagine that? More than 2/3 of people trying to find a home in a world that just wasn't built with them in mind?
And, behind that number are deeply personal stories. This quote comes from one of those people in the survey. It just hits you, right? It shows how a lack of accessible housing doesn't just create physical problems. It leads to this profound social isolation. It literally cuts people off from their friends, their communities, and the life they used to have.
So, what are these barriers really? Well, it's so much more than just a few steps at the front door. It's this whole collection of obstacles. Doorways that are too narrow for a wheelchair, kitchens you can't really move around in, the crazy high cost of making any changes, or even being stuck in a home that's miles away from public transport or basic services.
But there is a way forward. While homes can present these really deep challenges, our public spaces, our cities, can actually give us a blueprint for some solutions. So let's take a look at how we can start designing not just our houses, but our entire cities for everyone.
This is where the little details mean everything. This table, it's based on urban design guidelines from India, and it shows the nitty-gritty practical stuff that makes the city accessible. We're talking about a sidewalk being wide enough for a wheelchair and someone else to pass comfortably. A ramp with a very specific slope so it's safe to use. Even thinking about the size of the gaps in a storm drain so a cane or a wheel doesn't get stuck. These aren't just suggestions, they're the literal building blocks of an inclusive city.
Okay, so how do we make sure these details actually happen? You have to build it in from the very beginning, at every single stage. It starts with talking to experts when you're still designing, then you write it into the contracts, you train the people actually doing the work, and, this is crucial, you do regular checks to make sure those standards are being kept up over time. It's a clear, repeatable process.
All right, let's shift gears now. We've talked about concrete and pavement, so let's jump to the absolute cutting edge of innovation. Technology is completely rewriting the rules of what's possible, creating a whole new generation of tools that empower and include people in ways we could have only dreamed of just a few years ago.
I mean, just look at this incredible evolution. It's kind of wild. On the left, you've got a patent for a crutch, a design that's been around in one form or another since ancient Egypt. On the right, a modern myoelectric prosthesis that can read muscle signals to move with this level of intuitive control that was just pure science fiction before.
This leap from simple support to smart, responsive tech is happening everywhere.
And what's so amazing is how this technology is becoming part of our everyday lives. The best example is probably sitting in your pocket right now, your smartphone. Apps like Google's Sound Amplifier can pick out and boost voices in a noisy room, while Live Transcribe gives you real-time captions of conversations. This is assistive technology for everyone, built right into the devices we already use.
And this leads us to the really futuristic stuff, brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. Basically, these create a direct link between a person's brain and a device. This means someone can control a computer, a wheelchair, or a communication tool using only their thoughts. It completely bypasses physical limitations.
And listen, this isn't just a cool sci-fi concept anymore. This patent diagram here shows one of these BCI systems. The vast majority of patents in this field have been filed in just the last decade or so. That shows you how fast things are moving. This tech is quickly going from the lab to the real world.
So, we have the design principles, we have this incredible emerging technology, but how do we actually put it all together? Building an accessible future, it's not just about clever engineering or a few lines of code. It's about the conscious choices we make as a society and the policies we create to make sure nobody gets left behind.
And this brings us to a really central debate, which you can see clearly in the housing world. Do we go with a voluntary approach and just hope the industry chooses to adopt accessibility standards? Or do we need regulations that mandate these features, treating inclusion not as a nice-to-have but as a basic human right? Both sides have their arguments, but the outcome of this debate is going to define the world we all live in.
You know, this has been such a long journey. From the invention of the crutch thousands of years ago to the first real standards for barrier-free design back in 1961 to the explosion of software tools in our pockets just recently. But as that projection for 2030 shows, the future is coming up fast, and this work has never been more urgent.
Ultimately, though, this whole thing is a story of human ingenuity and optimism. As this quote from Maria Teresa Arredondo Waldmeyer puts it so beautifully, it's about believing that we can build a better, more inclusive world. The tools are here, the knowledge is here, the potential is just immense.
And so, it all comes down to a fundamental choice. Every single building we put up, every product we launch, every line of code we write, it's a decision. It's a decision to either design for exclusion and put up barriers for some, or to design for inclusion and open doors for all. The question isn't whether we can do it. The question is, which future are we going to build?